Hey, good afternoon. Vinnie Mirchandani here. Real pleasure to have Jack Barrett, President and CEO of First Citrus Bank. As many people will know, as part of the stimulus package, President Trump and the Treasury Secretary passed the payroll protection, the PPP emergency loan program endorsed by the SBA. And community banks like First Citrus have taken huge advantage of that, much to the benefit of small businesses. So Jack, thank you very much for your service. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about First Citrus.
No, sure, it's a pleasure, Vinnie, to be on, and thanks for having me. We're a community bank, First Citrus, that we started ourselves about 20 years ago in the northwest part of Tampa in Citrus Park, and we started at zero when we had just under 500 shareholders. It's a very much of a people's bank in the sense that our shareholders are broadly spread out all over Tampa Bay. And because of that, you don't have someone sitting at the end of a boardroom table playing God over your economic futures and financial destinies. And we sort of like that. And just like with money, you got to really spread it around. We feel the same way about equity in a company as well. And so today we're a $400 million, well, actually today we're a $500 million company. We finished last year at $419 million. Today we're a $530 million company. We had a pretty big slingshot because of exactly why we're here meeting today, which is on the payroll protection program. And so we had grown a tremendous amount in a very short window of time. In other words, we had made over $100 million in loans within a 6-month window of time. But basically, we're the Small Business of the Year by the Greater Tampa Chamber of Commerce. We are the third best performing bank stock in the southeastern United States for banks under 10 billion, according to S&P Global Market Intelligence. And we are in the top 100 of community banks in America, according to American Banker magazine. And we're having a pretty good run right now. And we're just happy to be here and happy to be useful.
You know, I've been writing about acrobatics during this phase, so manufacturing companies moving in to make ventilators and last mile logistics and obviously healthcare heroics and so on. Yours must be an amazing story of heroics. How many loans did you do in a couple of months? I mean, it must have been, did you sleep at all?
Well, that's really, in terms of the heroics, it was, our people were tremendous. They were just amazing. And it was inspirational to see how they rallied together and galvanized, because when Treasury first passed this program, it was implemented within 6 or 7 days after Congress passed the legislation, and then Treasury started implementing the program with the SBA. And so, this was a total foreign activity for our entire industry. And we started cobbling together processes and procedures, and there was so much economic anxiety, there was so much health anxiety and fear. And our bankers, our First Citrus bankers, we look at ourselves as the economy's first responders. And so that's really why it was just very natural for us to step in. And in these type of times of extreme difficulty, like COVID-19 and others, that's really when we can set ourselves apart, because we are even more motivated to do our job and get out there and help.
So how many did you process in a 45 days, 60 days? How many small businesses did you help?
Yeah, sure. We did about 1,180 small business financings, and that's more than we do in several years combined.
Wow. I'm sure they're very grateful. Jack, on the other hand, it seems like the larger banks, in some ways, or maybe they're not getting the right press, fumbled the ball when it came to helping small businesses here. Is that a fair statement?
I think it's very fair in terms of messaging to the market. And it's also fair that, for large monolithic, trillion-dollar organizations, it's, for them to change, it's like changing an aircraft carrier. And really the competitive advantage for the community banks, and our company in particular, is twofold. One, it's based on speed to market, and two, operational flexibility. And when you have that strategic clarity and you can get a new piece of legislation handed to you and say, go out and do this, businesses are hurting, people are scared, and they were and still are. Well, that's right in our sweet spot, and because it requires that customization. And our Chief Lending Officer, David Misterio, he likes to say, build a box around our client. And so we back into what our customers' need is, whatever it may be. And so if you're running a $1 trillion company, it's unfortunate for their customers because we've benefited from a lot of fallout, and what they're telling us is they've never felt more ignored or felt their bank was they've never felt it more inaccessible, and being able to have a conversation. And so this is why we're here, and we take that as a pretty serious responsibility.
Jack, you've obviously done very well for the Tampa Bay community. As you talk to your peers around the country, has that been a similar opportunity for other community banks?
Not necessarily. We came out of the chalks sprinting, and we're very intentional about that. And we were already an SBA 7A lender. We already have a department. We're already fluent in that. And so many community banks and banks in America do not offer that. I think maybe a third of the banks in Florida offered that as an adjunct line of business. And so early on, the government couldn't get the new banks that wanted to participate in the PPP program approved quick enough. So there was a bit of chaos and acrimony and back and forth along the way, because just to try to get these outlets, these banks as the distribution outlets, to be able to equip our the communities with liquidity.
Well, I'm glad you were set up to do it, and like you say, you jumped at the opportunity. Let's talk a little bit about technology. I interviewed somebody from Salesforce, the CRM vendor, and they said they work with a software vendor called nCino, and they managed to help a number of community banks with their technology. Did your technology hold up pretty well during this spurt?
It did, and we were real pleased. Just like for our clients, Vinnie, we put together our own tracking mechanisms in our own networks, even though we're not technology, experts. But, I think the technology challenges were more on the SBA's government end of it. They did not have enough bandwidth to be able to process all of the robust demand and the PPP applications that they were receiving.
I've read there were 4 million applications, so you can kind of appreciate their challenge. But then on the other hand, I've seen all kinds of amazing stats and how clouds have scaled and so on. Jack, I'm asking everyone this question, and yours is particularly relevant because you deal so much with small businesses. What do you see? Do you see a V recovery, like a sharp rebound? Do you see a gradual U? Do you see a W? Maybe we'll have flare-ups and it'll slow things down, or regions will vary. Or do you see an L where, it's going to be dead for a while?
There never have been two recessions that were alike. And so the last one, we had a really drawn out U curve, to your point. And to this one, this is so situational based on your geography and based on the economics in your specific demographic that your financial institution is in. So for instance, the folks I really think that the central business districts and metropolitan communities that have high volumes of skyscrapers, and they will be changed dramatically. I feel that people are looking at telecommuting as something that they can do to varying degrees depending upon the role, and they can save on expense with overhead from commercial real estate. But there are a lot of winners and losers in this. The winners are the Zoom calls that we're on this right now, and the you got to think the losers are, that the movie theater space, the AMC cinemas of the world. But so it's really hard to broad brush a long-term, whether it's a L or a U or a V or a W.
Are you optimistic about the Tampa area?
I'm a cockeyed optimist, Vinnie. Betcha. And so, here's how I see Tampa playing out, Tampa Bay. First of all, the hospitality is doing quite well. That's not the Marriott's, the higher end hotels, and that's already they're already starting to regain on the bookings with that. And because of the healthcare outcomes thus far with COVID-19, just like TCJA, COVID-19 could also be another structural emboldener of migration from other states to relocate to Florida, particularly Tampa Bay. And Tampa Bay has the most upside potential in terms of infrastructure build out relative to population density. So you look at the southeast part of the state, Boca Raton, Lauderdale, Miami. Yeah, it's a lot more densely populated, and here it's flatter and a little bit more spread out. And so our economy is going to do fine. The general contract, I've talked to many general contractors, and their backlogs into 2021 very healthy. They haven't missed a beat. Even the restaurant owners that we know and that we work with, early on, we've seen restaurants drop 50% in their top line just like that and not lose money. Wow. In March, not lose money in March. And the only way that can happen is the best fertilizer is the farmer's footprints behind his own plow. And when it's your baby, you're gonna be looking at it. You're gonna be backing into your new top line. And also, let's go into April now, and you're starting to see revenues pick back up. Granted, they're nowhere near where they were pre-COVID, but they are coming back at a small double-digit percentage, and that will incrementally keep unfolding. And so when you think about it, we had such a low unemployment rate pre-COVID, and then it abruptly shifted. And so now it's abruptly high, but it'll get taken down, and Tampa Bay will be just fine. The state of Florida will be just fine.
I think it's going to come out more and more how well Tampa Bay handled this crisis. I keep telling my friends in New York and California, guys, they think we're understating I say, even if you're understating, it's 15 to 20%. We've done very well. We've taken care of our elderly. Give us some credit. And as that comes out, what you say will probably become more real, which is this is a great part of the world. Jack, I just wanted to share with you, your Chris Petrosini initiated our PPP loan on Easter Sunday. He called me on Easter Sunday morning after my big bank ignored us for 3 weeks. Okay. So on behalf of all the small businesses, thank you for your efforts, and wish you the best of luck. And your optimism is wonderful for this part of the world and in general. So thank you very much.
It's a pleasure, Vinnie. And if I could just say one thing, Chris is outstanding, and all of our bankers. We were here 7 days a week for well over a month, and morning, noon, and night. And it was an amazing effort, but the outreach and the outpouring of affection we received from clients with emails, I have never seen anything like it before. Clients are expressing moved to tears, and because of exactly, Vinnie, what you're saying, and I'm so glad you shared that, and I appreciate you saying that. And Chris is outstanding, and thank you. Keep the ride going, and keep telling all your friends to come bank at First Citrus.
Thank you very much. We'll do that. Thank you.